The snow hadn't stopped falling when they left me, not a single word, not a glance back, just silence. And the sound of their boots crunching away through the frost. I was bleeding, my legs numb, my newborn daughter crying against my chest, wrapped in the last clean cloth I owned. They said I had shamed the family. They said I had cursed their name. Because I had given birth to a girl, I didn't scream, I didn't beg. I just held my child tighter. If this was how the world ended for me, so be it. But from the edge of the trees, through the mist and pine he appeared. A figure on horseback. Silent. Fierce. His eyes met mine, and something inside me refused to die. He didn't speak. He didn't ask who I was or what I'd done. He just wrapped us in his cloak and lifted us out of the snow. That night they left me to die, but fate sent someone who saw more than shame. Have you ever been abandoned by those who should have protected you? Ever felt the cold sting of judgment, when all you needed was mercy? If you've ever carried something alone when no one believed you were worth saving, then this story is yours too. Let me tell you what happened next, and if it breaks your heart, you'll want to hear tomorrow's story even more. Subscribe now, this one only gets deeper. My name is Elara James, and long before the snow fell, long before my daughter cried her first breath into a cold, heartless world, I was already invisible. Ashridge Bend was the kind of town that knew how to keep things quiet. Secrets didn't vanish, they just settled like dust on windowsills, on worn pews, on the backs of women who never dared speak too loudly. They called me that girl from the edge of town, the one with the crooked ankle from the fire, the one whose mother used herbs instead of prayers, the one who walked like she was dragging a ghost behind her. They never said it to my face, but they didn't need to. The way they turned their backs at the well, the way their children were yanked away when I passed too close. Even the pastor avoided my name during Sunday blessings. Just a glance in my direction, then the prayer moved on. My mother, Elara James, had once been the town's midwife, a healer, a woman with soft hands and a quiet strength. She lit candles in every window, not for decoration, but for the souls she believed were wandering just out of reach. They said she was strange, said she talked to shadows and listened to the wind. But when babies were born, blue or fevers climbed too high, it was her door they knocked on. Always at night, always pretending it wasn't happening. Then one day, she got sick. No one came. She died quietly, her hand in mine. The quilt she stitched with lavender still warm against her chest. They buried her in the woods, no headstone. Just a pile of river rocks, said it was better that way. And I inherited her silence. I lived alone after that, in the cottage, half swallowed by pine trees and whispered curses. I did laundry for the inn, patched shirts for the blacksmith's boy, though he never once looked me in the eye. Carried water for old Mrs. Whitmore, who called me useful, but never dear. I never complained. Not because I had no pain, but because I knew they wouldn't listen anyway. They called me barren, said the fire had ruined me, said no man would ever want the cursed child of a dead witch. But they were wrong about that. I wasn't barren, I was just careful. When the first signs of life stirred inside me, I didn't smile, I didn't cry. I just stood in front of the mirror, hand pressed to my belly, and whispered, "I will protect you, even if it means they burn me alive." I wore loose aprons kept to the shadows. No one noticed the way I winced carrying buckets. No one asked why I stopped attending church. They were too busy avoiding me to notice I was growing a miracle. Her name was Rhea, born on a floor of splinters and silence wrapped in smoke-scented cloth, and the kind of love that makes you ache. When I looked into her eyes, so round, so helpless, I felt something I hadn't in years. Not fear, not grief, but a furious, beautiful kind of love. The kind that roots itself into your bones. But Ashridge Bend didn't believe in miracles, and when they found out, they didn't bring casseroles. They brought firewood. Someone nailed a letter to my door. No name, no mercy, just words burned in ink. Leave by sundown or be taken. I didn't scream. I didn't plead. I packed what I had, a bottle, a torn shawl, my baby, and walked through streets that never called me neighbor, past houses that once begged my mother for help. Not a single hand reached out. Not even to say goodbye. They watched from windows. Like cowards, and I stepped into the forest. Alone, or so I thought. The deeper I walked into those woods, the more the cold became a second skin. Rhea whimpered against my chest, her tiny breaths fogging the inside of my shawl. I whispered to her, promises I wasn't sure I could keep. We'll find somewhere safe, little one, somewhere warm. But the forest didn't care about promises. It only offered silence. By twilight, my legs trembled. Blood still oozed from where childbirth had torn me raw. Every step burned, every breath scraped. I found an old oak split by lightning, gnarled like an old hand, reaching from the ground. I collapsed beneath it, curling around my daughter, using my body to block the wind. If this was where we died, at least we'd be together. That's when I heard it. Hoofbeats, slow, steady, measured, like they belonged to something that wasn't afraid of the dark. I froze. I didn't have the strength to run. Didn't have the courage to scream, so I did what I'd always done. I braced for pain. From the trees he emerged, a tall figure, broad-shouldered, wrapped in a cloak of dark hide. His horse moved like it wasn't touching the ground. Silent, powerful, otherworldly. He didn't say a word, just looked at me, and I looked back. For a moment, the world stopped spinning. He didn't see a broken woman. He didn't see shame or scandal or sin. He saw me. His face was painted with a streak of red across one cheekbone, his hair braided with feathers and beads. He was Cheyenne, the kind the town blamed whenever cattle went missing or crops failed or a storm hit early, the kind they whispered about but never dared to face. But he wasn't what they said. He didn't pull a knife. He didn't demand answers. He knelt in the snow, so gently like approaching a wounded animal, not a woman, and whispered something in his own language. I didn't understand the words, but I understood the tone. It was a question, and for the first time in years, I answered someone with more than silence. I nodded. He removed the cloak from his shoulders and laid it over me without touching my skin. It smelled like fire and pine, and something I didn't recognize. Safety. Then he rose, brought his horse closer, and pointed to the saddle. Not a demand, an offer. I hesitated. I didn't know this man. Didn't even know his name, but I knew cold. I knew death. And I knew I couldn't carry my daughter through one more night like this. So I stood barely. He caught me by the elbow, steadying me like a tree battered by storms. His touch was strong, but not cruel. And when he lifted me and Rhea onto the saddle, then climbed up behind us, I realized no one had held me in years. No one had made me feel safe. His arms came around just enough to guide the reins, not trapping, not claiming, just protecting. We rode through the dark. Ashridge Bend vanished behind us, and I didn't look back. We reached a clearing by dawn, smoke curling from 3 small lodges tucked between pines. An older woman stepped out first. Her face was weathered but kind. 2 children peeked from behind her skirts, eyes wide, but not afraid. The warrior said something in Cheyenne. The woman nodded and beckoned me inside. It was warm, so warm I cried. Not from fear, from disbelief, from relief so sharp it hurt. I fed Rhea by the fire, wrapped her tighter, and watched as the warrior squatted by the doorway. He didn't speak, didn't intrude, just stayed. Just stayed. And for the first time in my life, I slept. Not haunted by whispers, not hunted by shame. Just warmth and breath and silence that didn't judge. At first I thought I was only staying for a night, just one night to survive. But one night became 2. 2 became a week, and soon I forgot how many days had passed since I last felt afraid. The lodge was small, warm, and smelled of smoke and pine. The woman Nala never asked questions. She just fed me, gave me herbs. Watched Rhea sleep with the soft, knowing eyes of someone who had raised children during hard winters. Kaelen didn't speak much English, and I spoke no Cheyenne, but some languages don't need words. A glance, a nod, a shared bowl of broth. A fire lit without asking. That was enough. In that silence, something new grew between us. Not love, not yet, but trust. A fragile thread pulled taut between 2 broken edges. He showed me how to bundle kindling, how to keep a fire alive, even in wind. I showed him how to mend torn seams with stubborn, tiny stitches. He made Rhea laugh, really laugh by whistling through a blade of grass. I didn't know my child had that kind of joy in her, yet I didn't know I did either. Sometimes we sat by the fire and said nothing at all, just breathed. And for once, breathing didn't feel like a burden. But Ashridge Bend, it doesn't let go of what it thinks it owns. Whispers made their way back to the saloon, to the chapel, to Sheriff Milton with his crooked morals and badge too shiny for the dirt he crawled through. They said I had betrayed my kind, turned savage, chosen sin. The preacher called me heathen. The women hissed my name from behind fences again. The men said nothing, which in Ashridge Bend was always the worst sound. Kaelen knew something was coming before I did. He could feel it in the wind, the way the forest went quiet, the birds gone, the stillness too still. I remember waking that morning with a cold in my spine that had nothing to do with the weather. Rhea whimpered, sensing it too. Kaelen was already outside, tending to the horses. He looked at me, didn't say a word. He didn't need to. We both knew something was coming. By midday, the first shout echoed through the trees. Rough drunk, full of bloodlust and righteousness. The worst combination, I didn't even have time to grab a coat. Just Rhea. Just my heartbeat. Just the memory of being hunted once before. They burst into the clearing, 5 men. Guns rope dust caked on boots and beards, and hate in their eyes. I didn't recognize all of them, but I knew the kind that never looked you in the face unless they were about to destroy it. Kaelen stepped forward. He didn't draw a weapon, he didn't flinch. He stood like stone carved from fire, like he had faced storms bigger than this before, and never backed down. They hesitated. For one moment, they weren't sure how to handle him, and then the sheriff raised his rifle. The shot rang through the woods, a warning, a promise of what was to come. That's when I ran, Rhea against my chest, heart pounding, breath ragged. I didn't know where to go, just that I couldn't stop. But the forest floor was deep with snow, my legs too weak, my body still not healed. I tripped, fell. Rhea cried out, and the sound of boots followed. I hit the ground, hard face down in the snow, Rhea's wail piercing the air beside me. I tried to get up, but my legs refused. My skirt tangled around me like chains. Then I felt the hands, rough, cruel, tearing Rhea from my arms like she was nothing but cargo. No, the scream ripped from me, hoarse and sharp, dragged from a place deeper than fear. They laughed. They mocked. One of them, barely a man, more boy, grabbed a fistful of my hair and yanked my head back. I remembered him. Micah, the pastor's son. He used to sing in the church choir. Now he had a knife in his hand. "You should have died in that fire," he hissed. "We'll finish what we started." Then I heard it. A shot. Not from them. From the trees. Micah's hat flew off, sliced clean by a bullet. He stumbled backward, his eyes wide now. Not with fury, but fear. Another shot cracked the air. The sheriff's canteen burst at his hip. Water streamed down like blood from a wound. Then, Kaelen appeared. He stepped from the trees like a spirit summoned by rage itself. No war cry, no shouting, just his rifle raised steady and certain. Not aimed to kill, aimed to warn. He could have ended them right then, but he didn't. He gave them a choice. And cowards, they always take the exit when they realize they're not the ones holding the fear anymore. Sheriff Milton cursed under his breath. This ain't worth the blood, he spat. Let's go. The others followed, sullen, angry, dragging their pride and failure behind them like broken dogs. And when they were gone, when the boots faded and the breath in my chest stopped burning, Kaelen stepped forward. He didn't rush, didn't sweep in like a hero from the stories. He crouched, picked Rhea up from the snow, cradled her with such tenderness I thought my chest might break all over again. Then he knelt beside me, held her out, offered her back, not like property, not like a prize, like a gift, like he was giving me something sacred that had never belonged to him in the first place. My hands trembled as I took her. Her tiny fingers curled around mine, like she remembered me, like she knew I never stopped trying. Kaelen didn't speak. He reached into the pocket of his coat and untied a strip of leather from his wrist. It was simple, a braid of dark hide. Nothing flashy, no gold, no jewel. Just a symbol of protection, of loyalty, of staying. He placed it in my palm. If I kept it, he would stay, not as my rescuer, not as my captor, as my equal, my partner. And in that moment, I closed my hand, not because I trusted the world, but because I trusted him. He exhaled slowly, almost like he'd been holding that breath for years. I didn't know what would happen next, didn't know if the town would come back, didn't know if safety was even real, but I knew this. I wasn't alone anymore. We rode back to the Cheyenne clearing in silence that night. Rhea slept soundly by the fire. Kaelen sat across from me, mending a broken strap. We didn't talk, didn't need to. The silence wasn't empty anymore. It was shared. I touched the braid on my wrist, and for the first time in years, I believed in tomorrow. By the first thaw, we had a plan, not to fight them, not to beg, but to vanish from their reach for good Kaelen. And I found a stretch of land deep in the valley where the trees grew thick and the river ran sweet. We built a small cabin from scratch. 3 walls at first, then 4, a fire pit, a roof that leaked until we patched it by hand. It wasn't much, but it was ours. Kaelen taught me how to ride properly. Not side saddle like the town expected of women, but free hair, loose knees pressed against the horse's ribs like I belonged on its back. He showed me how to read clouds for storms, how to catch fish with just a line and stillness. I showed him how to soothe Rhea's fever with willow bark, how to laugh when her muddy footprints covered the floor we'd just swept. We didn't call it love. There were no grand gestures, no rings, no vows, only gestures. Bread left by the fire, a warm blanket pulled over me in the night, the quiet reaching of one hand to another beneath the stars. We were building a life that didn't need validation, but Ashridge Bend wasn't finished with us. One dusty evening, as we were mending fence posts, a rider approached a pale horse, a glint of silver at the hip. Sheriff Milton, his jaw still crooked from the last time we'd met. But this time he wasn't shouting. He had a paper in his hand. A warrant, he said, dismounting with a smirk. Murder, reckless discharge of a firearm, aiding a fugitive. He waved the parchment like it was gospel. Funny thing, Miss James, he added. Your man here ain't even recognized by the courts. Makes everything real easy. Kaelen didn't move, didn't reach for a weapon, just watched. But me, I saw red. Rhea was clinging to my skirt, confused, her tiny fingers tightening around the fabric. I stepped between them. You'll have to kill me first, I said. Voice flat, dead calm, the sheriff laughed, mocking, mean. Then he reached for my daughter. He touched her, and something inside me broke clean open. I grabbed the old hunting rifle my father once kept behind our cabin door. It was heavier than I remembered, but it remembered me. I brought it up and swung. The butt of the rifle cracked against Milton's jaw with a sickening snap. He dropped hard, blood spilling like rusted water across his teeth. Kaelen stepped forward silently, picked up the warrant, and tore it in half, then in half again, dropped it at the sheriff's boots, like litter. We leave, he said, and that was that. No revenge, no fire, no fury, just a decision we packed only what we could carry. Blankets, dried meat, a small tin of Rhea's favorite berries, and we rode through the valley over the hills, far beyond anything that town could touch. By moonrise, we reached the river. It ran cold and fast. Too deep to walk, I hesitated. What if I slipped? What if I lost her? What if I failed her again? Kaelen didn't offer to carry me, didn't offer to lead. He simply extended his hand, not to save me, but to stand with me. So I took a breath, shifted Rhea higher in my arms, and stepped into the current. The water fought me, dragged at my skirts, numbed my legs, but I gritted my teeth, whispered to the mare, "We're stronger than this," and step by step, we crossed. When we reached the far bank, Kaelen let out a breathless laugh. Rare, beautiful. And for the first time since the day I bled alone in the snow, I laughed too. Wet, shaking, wild, but alive. And no church, no badge, no whispered curse could take that from me. We found it 3 weeks later, a place the world hadn't ruined yet. Nestled in a northern valley where cottonwoods danced with the wind and the rivers braided silver through grass, stood an abandoned cabin. The roof sagged. The door leaned sideways. But the well was deep, and the earth was rich. We made it ours. Kaelen built a new fence. I patched the roof with hide and tar. Rhea helped me press seeds into the dirt, her tiny hands clumsy but eager. At night we sat by the fire. Sometimes we spoke, sometimes we just listened to the wind, to each other's breath, to the kind of silence that no longer meant shame. The fire between us never blazed hot like fairy tales. It burned low, steady, unshakable. And in that warmth we grew stronger. One spring morning a rider came. No rifle, no threats, just a letter. My father had died. The town, suddenly full of mercy, offered to clear my name. Said Rhea could have a proper life. If I returned, if I left Kaelen behind. Kaelen said nothing when I told him, just nodded. Pain flickered behind his eyes, but he didn't ask me to stay. It had to be my choice. That night I sat by the river while Rhea tossed pebbles into the water. Laughing, I held the letter in my hands, then slowly crushed it until the ink bled into pulp. And I walked back to the cabin, to the smoke curling from our chimney, to Kaelen waiting quietly at the doorway, to the only future I had ever chosen. No, the town didn't deserve goodbye, but I needed one. So I went back once, just once, rode into Ashridge Bend with Rhea on my hip and Kaelen by my side. I looked them in the eye, every single one of them. And I said the words they never gave me the chance to say, I'm not coming back. They had tried to bury me in shame, but I had planted roots in freedom. I wasn't broken. I wasn't cursed. I was reborn. That night we made camp by the river where the stars spilled like embers across the sky. Rhea slept in my lap, her breath soft and steady. Kaelen sat across the fire carving a tiny wooden horse with his blade. He didn't look at me, he didn't need to, because we were no longer waiting for the world to bless what we had already blessed it ourselves. There were no church bells, no legal names, no town crier announcing our worth. But when Kaelen tied a new leather braid around my wrist, this one threaded with a single white bead, I knew I wasn't surviving anymore. I was living. And in that moment, with firelight on my skin and the child I once carried through the snow, now dreaming in safety, I finally believed what he whispered. The first night we met. You are not what they called you. You are what you choose to be, so let me ask you. What do you choose to be? When the world tries to define you, if you felt Elara's fire tonight, tell me where you're listening from in the comments. And if you believe broken people deserve whole lives, vote number 7 for Kaelen and number 3 for the bond they built. Don't forget to subscribe to EN Reddit Story for more true karma stories every single day. Someone forgotten is waiting for you tomorrow.